Recent events have many churches thinking about church security, maybe for the first time. Violence in houses of worship is on the rise, with many groups estimating over 400 incidents each year in the US. You want to keep your people safe, but while still maintaining a welcoming atmosphere. This can feel like a difficult balancing act. How do we restrict access, incorporate active monitoring, and communicate effectively without making our house of God feel like a military compound? Let's talk about it. Strategies for church security can vary greatly, depending on manpower, budget, and experience. So rather than give you the most thorough plan that will likely be unattainable for many, I'm going to focus this video on the most important steps that churches can take to get started. You can always scale up and add additional layers as your team and resources grow. Team roles and responsibilities. Building a strong team is the first step to successful church security. You might not be able to be overly selective, since you'll likely be working with all volunteers, but it's important to recruit team players with good character who are slow to anger. And if anyone has those traits and experience in law enforcement, military, or being a first responder, then that's a definite plus. If you want to be extra thorough and cautious, consider doing background checks or having your team members sign a code of ethics. It's not that you're trying to be paranoid, but no church wants guys that have watched one too many John Wick or Jason Statham movies living out their action hero fantasies at the expense of innocent people in the pews. The goal should be to have strong, virtuous protectors that provide a presence that is known and reassuring without being a distraction. Other than a badge or a vest, your security team members should be mistaken for greeters or ushers. The number of team members present at each gathering might range from 2 to 7, depending on the size of your building, the size of your team, and the threat level in your area. At a minimum, you should have one guard position near the entryway to the church and one additional person to either monitor the camera system if you have one, or act as a rover. The guard should be observing everyone that enters and scanning for red flags. Is anyone carrying an unusually large backpack or wearing a long trench coat that seems designed to hide whatever is underneath? Does anyone seem visibly nervous or on edge? It's the guard's job to notice those things and respond appropriately. As I mentioned before, the second team member should either be watching the video feed for the surveillance system, if your church has one, or patrolling all areas such as hallways, lobbies, parking lots, and cry rooms, or children's areas. If a third team member is present, they should be your medic. All the members of the security team should know where the medical supplies are, but the person serving in the medic role should have a higher level of emergency medical training. Or if this is not possible, try to familiarize your team members with people in your church who are first responders so that they know who to turn to if there is a crisis. Personally, my church is located less than a mile from a major medical center, so we rarely have a shortage of medical professionals available. If you have a large building or are blessed with a large number of team members, it might be helpful to have guards dedicated near the pastor and the cry room or children's area, and also a team leader to be the main point of contact and to coordinate the team members serving that day. Finally, and most controversially, you might consider having a law enforcement officer present. Police presence. The decision to have or not have a police presence at your church will depend on many factors, but is something worth considering. Not only does the officer provide a visual deterrent, but they also have arrest authority, and they can immediately address violence without legal or liability concerns. If you determine that a law enforcement officer stationed inside your church won't be received well, then you might consider having a police car park outside or drive around the church periodically. I know having a police presence can be a touchy subject, but developing a cooperative relationship with your local law enforcement will not only help protect your church and the people in it, but will also help things to go more smoothly if the day would ever come that you need their involvement. Not only that, but they are a great resource during the planning phase for your church security team. Many local police departments or sheriff's offices will assist with a walkthrough of your property and to help determine proper access control and evacuation plans. They might even offer ALICE training or other helpful suggestions based on their knowledge of threats in your specific area. Training. It's hard to overstate the importance of training for your security team. You can't expect that 2 or 3 volunteer team members will be able to defend against a surprise attack on your church just because a plan was discussed once in a meeting room. You need to train and drill the plan into their muscle memory. In high-stress situations, people will default to their lowest levels. Performance under pressure is only achieved through practice. So practice, drill, and then practice some more. You can also check out programs such as ALICE training, which teaches people what to do in active shooter situations. Check out alicetraining.com for more information. But what about situations that seem to be escalating, but have not yet become violent? This is where de-escalation training is important. The last thing we want to do is invite a violent response by acting unnecessarily aggressive or confrontational. It's important to learn the signs that can help you determine when someone is just lost or confused, or when they are posturing for an attack. Unfortunately, de-escalation techniques don't always work, and some situations do become violent. And for those incidents, your team or your church and your pastor will need to decide what level of force your team will officially allow. This decision will have legal and liability implications, so training might include non-lethal weapons, martial arts, and possibly firearms. Whichever options your church chooses, training is a must. And if you do decide to include firearms as part of your security plan, you should determine whether security team members will be required to obtain a license to carry and what qualifications or safety courses must be completed. And if you are carrying a firearm, whether for your church security team or just as part of your everyday carry, I would highly recommend self-defense coverage, or what's known as concealed carry insurance. Personally, I've been a member of CCWSafe since 2021 because they have no caps, no out-of-pocket expenses, no recoupment, which is very important, and they offer civil liability coverage. That means they don't just defend you in civil court, but they also offer options to cover civil judgments against you. This video is not sponsored by CCWSafe, and I am not affiliated with them in any way. I just want you to have the best protection that you can have, and I'm confident that you'll get that through CCWSafe. Remember, if you're shopping around, find out if there is any situation where they would try to recoup expenses, and if they offer civil liability coverage, not just civil defense coverage. All right, back to the security plan. Security plan. So you have your team, you have your training, and now it's time to get your plan and procedures in place. Your plan should include clicking the subscribe button below. And you should also consider things like how early to show up and what to do when you arrive. Is anyone doing a security sweep of the entire property, inside and outside of buildings? Is anyone watching the parking lot? A team member's presence in the parking lot or walking around the building's perimeter acts as a proactive deterrent. Is access to the building limited to a single entry point that can be easily secured and locked down? At what point do alternate entrances get locked? Do all external doors have crash bars installed? What about inside the building? Are there rear or side doors to the sanctuary that need to be locked? Is there a choir loft that needs to be secured? What is the process for responding to difficult or violent people? What de-escalation steps should be taken? And when should you meet violence with violence? Who is calling 911? And who is leading people to safety? What is the evacuation plan? And who determines when it's safe to evacuate? When should people run? When should they hide? And when should they fight? How should team members communicate with each other? Text message, radio, or maybe an app like iTac or Signal? At what point during an incident should an announcement be made? These are all things that you need to think about and determine solutions for based on your particulars. Answers to these questions will vary depending on the team, the building, and the location. But the answers are important, and the questions should not be taken lightly. You want to control access, limit entry points, monitor perimeters, and be prepared to act, while at the same time staying friendly and welcoming. Taking some actions rather than doing nothing is definitely a step in the right direction, but making well-informed decisions based on input from law enforcement or people with military or security backgrounds could mean the difference between a peaceful Sunday morning and a tragic day of mourning. Create your plan, practice on site with your team members, evaluate how things went, make adjustments if needed, and then practice again. Keep going until you have a solid plan that's committed to muscle memory. If you want to go deeper into church security and learn additional ways to enhance your security plan, check out the Church Security video series from John Lovell over at the Warrior Poet Society, and other resources from Christian Warrior Training over at christianwarriortraining.com. I'll link to both in the show notes below. Also, if you've been following my channel, I did just pass the 1,000 subscriber mark recently, and picked a winner for my Blackout Rosary giveaway. So congratulations to Kyle from New York. How does your church handle security? Are my suggestions going overboard, or did I leave out something important? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. You can follow the Barricade Guard on Facebook, X, and Instagram. The links are in the show notes below. And until next time, fortify your soul, body, and family.